Hey everybody, welcome back to Concierge Confidential. I'm your host, Brian Ortega, and in this week's episode, we're going to be talking about why is everybody moving to Las Vegas? It's a very common question that everybody keeps asking, at least people who live in the city of Las Vegas have been asking, why are you coming here? And I'm going to answer that. Basically, in this episode, I'm going to go over some of the reasons why people want to move to Las Vegas, the cool things about living in this wonderful city, and also some things that might deter you from wanting to live in the city of sin, obviously. So, in this episode, we're going to be going all over all that here on Concierge Confidential. Okay, everybody, so let's go ahead and dive into it. So why is everybody moving to Las Vegas? Number one reason being is the cost of living. It's actually one of the more affordable places to live for now in the city of Las Vegas. Not so much because of the housing prices or the rent prices, but more so because we don't have any state income tax. So in regards to places that would be similar to cities like Las Vegas, so you have to look at places like Los Angeles, New York, Miami, Chicago, large cities. These are typically the cities that we are always sort of compared to. Obviously, if you're living in places like, let's just say, like Austin, Texas, which for the most part actually did not have, it's actually gotten a very large boom in people moving there. But places, for example, in the Midwest, places like in Montana, obviously places like Virginia, moving to Las Vegas is very attractive just because you do get very good weather here for most of the year. And we do have a relatively good amount of jobs for people who want to move to this city. It's also a really good stopover city for people who are trying to live and work in Los Angeles, but they don't have the funds or resources yet to get there. But this gets you in sort of close proximity to that because Las Vegas is typically only about 3.5 to 4 hours drive to the city of Los Angeles. Or if you want to fly, it takes about an hour to go up and down to Los Angeles. But it's also a really popular place for people who work in like the modeling industry, acting, anything of that nature, because it is so close, because you're able to get to and from Los Angeles relatively quickly with relative ease, but still find similar work here in the city of Las Vegas. It is a very competitive city for people who work in those industries. For example, like models, typically models and bottle service girls, I'm not going to say are interchangeable, but typically a lot of women who come to Las Vegas to be bottle service waitresses tend to only do that for maybe 3 days out of the week because you can do it Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Same thing with the day clubs, but they do have the rest of the days, Monday through Thursday, for example, to pursue other opportunities, whether that be working as, I've seen girls work as cart girls, I've seen girls work as models, obviously. It helps them be a little bit more flexible with their time. And of course, it helps them manage other things. Like if they want to work in real estate, it's also very possible. Which brings me to my another reason why a lot of young people like moving to Las Vegas is the flexibility with so many jobs. So many people in Las Vegas work multiple jobs, not just because one, it's probably what you have to do to, make it in a lot of cities is work 2 jobs. For a lot of people, it allows them the opportunity and ease to do it in this city. It's not as large as a place as Los Angeles where you have to go over these sprawling cityscapes to get to and from other jobs. But a lot of employers and a lot of employees, a lot of employers tend to hire flexible or part-time workers, which opens you up to work other jobs as well. It's very common for people who are like bartenders or cocktail waitresses in general, or waiters, to work multiple jobs, multiple shifts, just because it's more lucrative that way. A lot of people end up working as, I know this gentleman who worked as a bartender at a restaurant on the Strip at Palazzo, but also worked at Excess as a bottle runner or a busser, just because the money is so good at both of those properties. One of them is relatively steady and the other one offers a really good extra rate of pay in that space. And both are very vertically integrated for the most part. For example, if you become a busser at a nightclub, if you work there long enough, then you become a host, then you become an executive host, and then a vice president, and so on and so forth. So it is a very, very lucrative way to make money in this town. It's also very easy just because, again, You have to work, a little bit more than usual, but a lot of people are very excited about doing it because they're very fun industries to work in. Obviously, if you work in IT, you're probably not going to be going and working a waiter job at the same time. It's very, very specific to the city of Las Vegas, and maybe places like Los Angeles, Miami, where you have sort of like this day sort of persona, or this day life, and then the nightlife that runs 24 hours. So when you have a city that runs 24 hours of day, that gives you way more opportunities to work all those times. Obviously, if you work in a place like Phoenix, you're not able to do that sort of 24-hour time span where most of the things close at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I know a woman who actually works as a cocktail server at the Sahara, sort of the graveyard shifts or whatever, and then it allows her to go fly in the middle of the day. She's getting her pilot's license. So this is a really great city if you are a hustler. This is definitely a hustler's paradise, just because, again, there are so many ways to make money, but you have to just really want to do it. I wouldn't say I am a hustler. I do like my sort of like set schedule, but I do a couple different things in the city. And they're just fun. So one of them is like a job that actually pays the bills, and the other one is something that I just really enjoy doing. And of course, doing the pod, which is one of my most favorite things to do for everybody out there. And of course, experiencing the city and showing you guys what it is, which if you ever want to see what that looks like, just go ahead and jump on Concierge Confidential _LV on Instagram to check out any of those videos, and on TikTok, which is at Keys to Vegas. But again, really, really, very... very. It's a really great city if you want flexible schedules and ways to sort of maximize the amount of money you can make in a very short period of time. One of the major setbacks, I would say, about living in Las Vegas is it is quite transient. So it is actually a little bit harder to maintain and find friends if you are not actively trying to do that. So if you are trying to move to the city and trying to have sort of that sort of community, you might have to really work at it, especially if you're somebody who likes to be, solitary, somebody who doesn't like to go out, doesn't like to branch out, doesn't like to talk to people. It can be quite tough, but sometimes you have to rely on sort of like work families, which is very, very common because you have many people, and I have a friend who works as a bartender, and those like restaurant work families are quite something else, I have to say. I don't know if I would be about all that, but it's all about I love yous and this is my person and, yada, yada, yada. Not my thing. I work in a different industry, which would be in television, which is much more like we're working these certain shifts for very long times together, and we're very happy to get away from each other at the end of the day, which, again, just depends on your personality, of course. But that's sort of like our thing. It's just like we've spent enough time together, we get our time apart. That's sort of the way that it kind of goes. But it just depends. Just depends on the industry that you're working in, and that's just kind of all it is. But there are many places in town that offer these different types of like community building things. I find that there is a company that does like Girls Night Out is a company that they have mixers for women that you can meet up and do all that kind of stuff. There's plenty of like bingo tournaments, and there's also a lot of people who do like bowling tournaments. So there are ways to actually branch out and find people. You just have to sort of actively do that and find all these like mixing events, of course. But once you do find sort of your group of people, there's plenty of things to do in town for groups, which is really, really fun. And you're going to find a lot of them have to do with being or staying off of the strip. A lot of times people like to bond over, stories about work, with guests and such. So you find a lot of these like local spots like Frankie's Tiki Room and the Golden Tiki. It just really is a very unique spot. I mean, a lot of people now are liking to go to Bel Air, which is a bar, over the Durango, and that's where they find people. So you do have to work at it to really find these communities, but people who hang out like in Main Street, who are very artsy, a little bit more retro than like I would hang out with, a little bit more hipster, but you find these communities that sort of bond together. One of the more interesting things that I did, I went to a small film festival. But with that, you found so many of these different artists and just unique people that you don't see in everyday life that I'm used to seeing from like the hotel industry. Hotel industry people tend to be very, very straightforward and a little bit cynical, if you will. But that's just sort of the types of folks that you meet in this town. I have no idea what people who do, like people who work off of the strip, who work in like IT or work in, engineering or, teachers for that matter. I don't have no idea what they do or how they hang out at. So it just is very different for me to be finding people like that. But it's interesting. But back to moving to Las Vegas. One of the other things you have to learn is really traffic is a generating thing here. It's growing. So we just have traffic every single day, every place you go. That's what you're going to be finding. But I would recommend that you get a car. It is very hard to navigate the city without a car. It's possible, but the city is not small enough to be able to go to and from wherever you're going without a car. I know one person who's able to go to and from work without a car, but that's because they live right next door to where they work. So that's a very rare occurrence, but this is definitely a city where you must invest in a car, and it's definitely something that I would recommend do if you are moving here. So hopefully you have a car, and hopefully it runs well, and hopefully the air conditioning works. Which brings me to my next point, is that, yes, it is sunny most of the year. Just know that it does get to be about 110, 115 degrees for at least 8 months out of the year. There are 4 months out of the year. Did I do that right? Yep, that's 12. Also, we only do math based on blackjack, so we're able to add up 8 and 11 and 8 and 4 very, very quickly to 11 and 12. But 8 months out of the year, it's definitely going to be in the 100-degree numbers. 4 times out of the year, we get perfect, beautiful weather. At least I think it's beautiful because I love it to be freezing in the city. But you have to be able to deal with the heat, which most people who move to Las Vegas understand that, which is why they moved to the wonderful city of Las Vegas. But overall, living in Las Vegas is really, really fun just because you do find your own little communities. You have places like Henderson, or Hendertucky is what people like to call it, which is a little bit out there, but that's sort of nice. I kind of like living in Henderson. I live in sort of like the Henderson area. But really getting to and from the strip only takes about 15, 20 minutes, depending on what part of the strip you're going to. You do also have the Summerlin area, which Summerlin tends to be a little bit more affluent. You're able to find a lot more of those nice townhomes, those nice $1 million mansions. And then you have North Las Vegas, which tends to be a little bit more like an urban area. Same thing with like West Las Vegas. East Las Vegas, which tends to be a little bit more urban, family-oriented, that kind of thing, and then it just sort of branches out from there, and we have all these new pockets all opening up all at the same time. So what's really cool is that everybody sort of has their own little section of the city, but you're all able to sort of still find the center, which is like the strip or downtown, and places to congregate sort of in this this semi-large city. But with that being said, Las Vegas is a quite diverse city. So if you're somebody who is, let's just say, part of like the LGBTQ community, or if you're like a minority, like African American or Asian American, Mexican American, or even Latino, you have a lot of communities and pockets that can cater to what you need. We have a very large Hawaiian population, which means you get to sample so many different types of Hawaiian cuisine. You learn so much about the Hawaiian culture. It's really, really quite fantastic finding out sort of all about that. Found out, though, don't like mac salad. Not my thing. Sorry to all my Hawaiians out there, but definitely not my thing. But I do love lumpia, which I don't think is Hawaiian, but kind of adopted it. It's in all the Italian Hawaiian restaurants. Definitely a thing. The days of like the Rat Pack and stuff is not really here anymore. So not as many Italians, although they have an Italian social club, which I told you can actually eat there. But I've never been brave enough to try it. But it definitely looks like somebody got whacked at some point in the Italian social club here in Las Vegas. But overall, what's great about Las Vegas is that it really does have that sort of both of the vibes of a big and a small city, because it has things like the Strip where you have all this world-class entertainment. You also have all these restaurants, and really that's where many of our high-end restaurants are located on the Strip. But we also have places in Summerlin. We have other little pockets that have very specific cuisine, like Lindo Muchican. Harlow, which is a beautiful restaurant in Summerlin, is where many of our sports stars will end up eating. Barry's, which is downtown, same thing. We do have these pockets that you can kind of find what you are looking for. But again, it's really cool because it feels very much like New York in the sense that all the high-end stuff is all in the same place, which is actually very funny. It's LA is a little bit different just because things are so much more spread out. So it's not as easy to sort of find all those wonderful things. So as we kind of just sort of wind into, why are people mad that people are moving to Las Vegas? I think a lot of it has to do with the housing market, not so much the jobs, just because I feel like the thing about jobs in Las Vegas is if you want one, you're going to go get one. I can definitely say that there is definitely somewhat of a shortage of workers, but there's always a place to find a job in town. So I don't think that's the problem. I definitely think it's the availability of housing and, of course, the pricing for housing, which obviously is a much larger conversation. But we do get a lot of people that are moving here from California and Arizona who want to live in this wonderful city. And the thing is, you can't stop people from moving here. It's really a much larger discussion, but home prices are definitely much higher than they used to be. Same thing with rent, because obviously they are tied together. But in regards to finding rent in the city of Las Vegas compared to other cities like in Los Angeles, it makes sense for you to move here. It's much, much cheaper to move here. I mean, a lot of places have said the median income, like the median price for an apartment in Vegas is about $2,000 a month. I think that's a little bit high. I think most normal places are usually between $1,500 and $1,800 for a one bedroom. And if you're looking for places that are 2 and 3 bedrooms, obviously those can get into the $1,800 to $2,000, $2,100 range. But it kind of is what it is, to be honest. But I think a lot of it has to do with, inflation. It has to do with, obviously, the tax rates that go up. You just have to sort of ride it out and just sort of pick the right spots. But yeah, a lot of people who live in Las Vegas are getting priced out of the markets here in town. And the sort of the employee rates are not rising with it at the same time. So it's not as fun to talk about that kind of stuff, but it's important to note that is why a lot of people out of state are moving here. But you just kind of just roll with the punches. I think Vegas is always constantly reinventing itself, figuring out what the next move is. I think a lot of people are getting excited about the possible Hollywood studios that are moving to Las Vegas. So when I say Hollywood studios, I mean a movie studio, which is really a unique industry that we really haven't had in Las Vegas. And I think since there are so many people who want to work in LA in the movie industry, that moving it to Las Vegas is a sort of it makes sense for it to move to this city just because it is so close to the bright lights of Tinseltown. But I'm excited about it. Hopefully that it goes in and it goes in quickly, and then we can create more jobs, and that would be fantastic. And then we won't have to move to Los Angeles to work in the TV industry. But that's a much bigger talk about that. I think a lot of people are leaving Las Vegas just because I don't think it has anything to do with prices on the Strip. That's definitely much more of a tourist problem. I think the thing about things on the Strip is that, like parking, for example, the extra charges for, the resort fee and it being exorbitant, definitely something that you have to look into. But we're gonna see where it goes. That's for people who want to visit Las Vegas. But I think Vegas is certainly moving to more of a affluent destination city and moving away from sort of that sort of budget traveler city in the future. So I don't know. That's kind of just where it sits at the moment. But I like living here. I think it's actually one of the more fun cities to live in. Are there places that I would like to live? I am one of those people that still would love to live in LA and San Diego because I love the cities, but we have enough people who are moving here that will then tell you, no, just stay here. It's completely fine. So it's just one of those things. It's sort of like the baby jump before you jump into the crazy, lifestyle of those cities. Another question that gets asked a lot is, what's it like to raise children here? I actually think it is actually quite normal to raise your kids here. Just because, again, we do have the Strip and Fremont Street, which are normal parts of town or abnormal parts of town that you understand that what you're getting when you go there. But if you stay in your pockets, like in, say, Henderson or Summerlin, I find it to be quite a normal way to grow up. It is important to note that we do not rank very well in education. A lot of that has to do with the funding that goes into the schools. A lot of people end up sending their kids to charter schools because of that reason. So I would say if schooling is an important part of your lifestyle or for your children, maybe be a little bit more hesitant just because of that particular reason. But in terms of safety and that kind of thing, I think this is a fantastic city to raise kids in, just because it is so diverse. So you're going to meet so many different types of people, and I think your child is going to be very well-rounded. And I think that would be, a pretty nice way to grow up. I didn't know there was anybody other than a Mexican who looked like me in the world. I thought everybody who looked like me was Mexican, and that was it. But once I moved to Las Vegas, I found out there's Ecuadorians, and there's Guadalajara is in Mexico. Ecuadorians. There's also people who are from Colombia. There's people from Brazil, and all these different types of Latinos and South Americans, and then also different types of people from overseas, like in China and Japan. And again, like where I grew up, everybody who looked Asian was like Chinese. And the thing is that's not the case. You have so many people who are from different cultures like Japan, China, Indonesia, Singapore, Australia, which Australian's bad example, but you get what I mean. So many different people bring so many different sort of like their cultural backgrounds to. Filipino is another big one that lives in Las Vegas. Like, for example, one time I went to a talent show that was in a house, and everybody thought it was like America's Got Talent, and it was awesome. So it's just such unique fabrics of city that I think is just so just interesting to be able to grow up around all that. So really indebted to sort of learning about all that stuff here in this wonderful city. So again, it is a sinful city, but I think it's a city that you can raise kids in no matter what. Dating is tough if you are looking to find a person. If you are a model or a nightclub host, you're going to be just fine. This is a great city for you because there is plenty of you guys running around. But if you are a normal person looking for a mate, good luck. Mostly they're probably going to work in the same place that you work at, or the same bar that you go to, which usually you guys are working in the same business, so you'll probably meet each other at some point. But it is a tough city to date in, just because you never kind of know like what everybody's sort of levels of sort of status or what they're looking for. But it's just like anything else. You learn and you live. It's just like any other big city. I've heard Los Angeles has these same problems. So good luck. Hey everybody, this is Brian Ortega from Concierge Confidential, and this episode is brought to you by AO Painting, who have been experts in specialized coating servicing Arizona for over 40 years. AO Painting specializes in industrial projects and are a one-stop shop for sandblasting, industrial painting, waterproofing, and much, much more. To see more of their work and to get a quote, you can visit aopaintinginc.com. That's aopaintinginc.com. AO Painting, where specialized is where we start. But anyways, we've gone on for a couple minutes here, but we'll call it the shorter episode. This is more of like a living in Las Vegas ep today. Next week, we are going to be talking about using your player's card correctly, how to get the most out of your tier credits and your points, and also like who you should book with when you are using your M Life for your Caesars rewards or your Genting rewards, whatever you want, whatever hotel you work with, how to get the most out of those credits. So Also, announcement on Thursday, we will finally release the new version of Last Night in Vegas, where you're going to be getting a little bit different format. Hopefully you guys are ready for it. I'm really excited to sort of present it. I've been working on it for quite a while, and hopefully it's something that you guys will enjoy, and we'll do it going forward. But again, follow us on our social channels, concertsconfidential_LV, or at our TikTok page, which is at Keys to Vegas, same thing as our Twitter. And of course, you can follow me, Brian_Ortega26, for my personal stuff, if you just want to see kind of what I'm up to. So anyways, this was Concierge Confidential. If you see me out in town, please come say hello. I'll buy you a drink. And remember, keep it confidential.